People, what is the worst secret your significant other is keeping from you, but that you actually know? I just spent a romantic and expensive 3-day weekend in Denver with my wife for Comic-Con, spent over $1,000, not including tickets, just to make sure we had a great time. Tonight, she tells me she's going out for a wine and paint night with her sisters, who live an hour away. I already had my suspicions, so I didn't buy it. Googled the guy I thought she was cheating with, found his address, packed up the kids, and drove over. Sure enough, the car I bought her was sitting in his driveway. So I took it back, loan, insurance, registration, all in my name, and dropped it off somewhere she can't get to it. Meanwhile, her older sister texted me saying she had too much to drink and was crashing at her place, but would be home in the morning. Absolute BS. Drove home, packed up all her clothes, shoes, wedding dress, our wedding album, every single picture of the two of us I could find, her toiletries, and laid them all out in the driveway. Changed the locks, disabled the garage door, locked all the windows. Took our 3-year-old daughter and my 6-year-old stepson to my parents' house. Put her bicycle right in the middle of her pile of crap. Now, I'm just sitting here, waiting for her to figure it out. Tomorrow, I cancel her phone, I pay for it, lawyer up, and hit the gym. Oh, and it's also my first day at a new job. One I took because the pay would make life easier for my family. This isn't the first time she's cheated, but it will be the last. The hardest part? Telling my 6-year-old son, the boy I've raised since he was 1, the one I've always loved as my own, that I probably won't get to be his dad anymore. Screw my life and that cheating liar. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. My ex-fiancé's family was always strange when it came to him being in a relationship, and they made it clear they wanted to keep him to themselves, especially his sister and mother. His mother, at 26, would still crawl into bed with him in the mornings, and his sister, who was 5 years younger, was always hanging on him, sitting on his lap and acting overly clingy. I put up with it for a while, thinking maybe it was just a cultural thing since his parents weren't from here. However, things took a turn after we got engaged, and he still wouldn't move out. One day, I decided to snoop while everyone was at work. I don't want to go into the details of what I found, but the evidence confirmed some deeply disturbing things. It was clear there was an incestuous dynamic, and what was worse was that he seemed perfectly okay with it. I told him I couldn't deal with the negligence and emotional turmoil he was putting me through, and I gave the engagement ring back without telling him what I had discovered. I stay in touch with his best friend, who I've known since childhood, and not long after I left, he pieced everything together too. Last I heard, it was still a very obvious situation. Story 3. I noticed that my significant other had deleted all his social media apps from his tablet, which made me suspicious. Out of curiosity, I checked his email, the one app he hadn't removed. In his starred inbox, I found an email from a webcam site confirming that he had changed his password. The date of the change was a while ago, but we were already dating at the time and had even hung out later that same day. I guessed his password and logged into the account. I don't know much about sites like this, but I saw that he had positive feedback. After Googling it, I realized that it didn't just mean he was watching. It meant he had been broadcasting himself, too. Since these sites only store feedback for 6 months, that means he must still be using it. It feels like I'm being cheated on, like I'm with someone I don't even know. The hypocrisy makes it worse. He gets jealous easily and doesn't like when I wear revealing clothes, but apparently, it's fine for him to do it in front of a live audience. He has no idea that I know, and I have no way of confronting him about it. Since we live together, I guess I'll just have to keep this to myself for now. Story 4. I recently discovered that my wife had another credit card with an $1,800 balance, one I didn't know about. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. A while back, I found out she had a credit card with a $2,200 balance. When I confronted her, she admitted it, and we paid it off immediately since we had the money in the bank. The issue wasn't the debt itself, it was that she had hidden it from me. The reason? Her brother, who is in prison, had manipulated her into sending him money. She promised to stop, and I believed her. Then, the other day, I was driving her car and found an invoice wedged between the console and the parking brake. Turns out, she has another credit card. I checked the statement and saw she owes $1,800. She doesn't know that I know yet. A little backstory. When we first got married, we lived in a converted garage attached to her parents' house. One night, while we were sleeping, her crackhead brother broke in and stole money from her purse. We confronted him, and he denied everything, even though we saw him run out of our apartment. It turned into a full-on fistfight, and he ran off. I chased him, barefoot, in my underwear, in freezing rain, but you can't outrun a crackhead. The next day, I told my wife we were moving out. We found a cheap, rundown trailer, but at least it was crackhead-free. A few months later, he got arrested for stealing $19,000 in checks from his boss. When he was caught, they found pills in his car. He racked up 109 felony charges and has been in prison ever since. Her mother always defended him. She sent him money in jail, and so did we, along with his aunt and grandmother. He milked everyone he could. I assumed he was either using the money for drugs or paying for protection. Then, 5 years ago, my father-in-law nearly died from a fungal infection that spread to his bloodstream and brain. He had no health insurance, lost his job, and they lost everything. That's when my mother-in-law finally told her son she couldn't send him money anymore. His response: he screamed at her over the phone. That was it for me. I drove 2 hours to the prison on visitation day just to curse him out. The guards made me leave, and I'm now permanently banned from visiting. From that moment on, I told my wife we were done sending him money. She agreed. Fast forward 1.5 years. One day, I got the mail and saw a credit card bill labeled "Open Immediately." It was past due. The balance: $2,200. The statement showed 2 payments to a prisoner payment service. When she got home, I confronted her. She admitted everything. He had called her crying, begging for money, and she didn't want to tell me because she knew I'd be mad. So instead of using the money we had in the bank, she used a credit card, ran up the balance, and paid interest on it. I was furious, but she called in, paid off the balance immediately, and canceled the card. I thought that was the end of it. Now, almost 2 years later, I find this invoice for the J.C. Penney card. And judging by the balance, she probably never stopped sending him money. I haven't confronted her yet, but I will. I plan to make her work extra shifts to pay off the $1,800 without it affecting our joint finances. I'll also demand she cancel every credit card she has and come clean if there are any others I don't know about. It's not about the money. We're doing great financially. We both came from modest backgrounds, worked multiple jobs to get her through nursing school, and started with nothing. Now we own our home, have investment land, and live well within our means. Divorce isn't an option for me. I love her, and I made a lifelong commitment. But this has to stop. I understand why she does it. He's her brother, and they were close growing up. She defended him when others mocked his speech issues, and that bond never went away. But he's a toxic person who preys on anyone who loves him. She needs to realize that on her own. He gets out of prison in a year. I doubt he's changed. My plan is simple: wait and watch. If he turns his life around, great. But if he falls back into his old ways, I'll be right there to remind her that he'll never change. And if that doesn't work, well, there's always the option of stuffing him in a crate with some MREs and a few bottles of water and shipping him to Mexico. Story 5. Ex cheated on me repeatedly despite refusing an open relationship and was terrible at hiding it. My ex was cheating on me during the last few months of our relationship. The ironic part is, I suggested an open relationship from the start, but she shot it down, yet still went behind my back. While her cheating was a big reason for our breakup, the main issue was her constantly getting drugs from my boss and not paying him back, which led to him threatening to fire me unless I paid her debt. She was awful at hiding it. She kept a password on her phone that I didn't know but would leave it around, with full notifications showing on the lock screen. I first got suspicious when I saw a text saying, "John wants to know if you want to go out with him." When I asked about it, she claimed it just meant going out to the bar, but wouldn't show me the rest of the conversation. A few days later, she randomly told me a story about how John 2 from the gas station asked for her number, but she didn't give it to him. Then, while she was in the shower, she got a text from John 2 from gas station, which she literally saved under that name. He said he was excited for tonight. I was working that night. So, I started hooking up with a girl I used to date. When I finally broke up with her, she tried to throw it in my face that she had been cheating for 3 months. I calmly said, "I know, I figured you finally came around to the open relationship idea, so I've been seeing Jane." She called me a piece of crap. "Yeah, I'm the bad guy for working 50-plus hours a week to support your drug habit and keep the bills paid, which is why I was never around for you in the first place. Good riddance. Story 6. He's been hiding his autism from me for 10 years. To clarify, it's a long-running on-again, off-again thing between us, but even when it's off, we've still remained good friends. He went through abusive therapy, and as a result, he believes hiding his autism is the most important thing. But that's like trying to hide an elephant in a bathroom, and he's not always super high-functioning. So, it ends up being this weird game where I pretend not to notice while I'm busting my ass to handle things gently. I have no idea how to talk to him about it. I know he has a formal diagnosis, but he's so traumatized by the institutional medical abuse he experienced in the name of therapy that just mentioning it or acknowledging it can trigger a meltdown. He thinks if I knew, I wouldn't love him anymore, but I've known for years and I still love him. I like him just the way he is. I just want things to be easier and less scary for him, and I don't know how to help when he won't admit there's a problem. Story 7. Before my ex-wife and I initially split up, I found out she had been secretly renting a storage unit with an entire apartment setup in it, just in case things went south with our relationship. She worked the graveyard shift, and one night I was using her laptop to watch The Walking Dead and sync the story. Since she used all Apple products, her iMessage was connected to her MacBook. I don't usually go through her messages, but with the constant stream of notifications coming in, it was obvious she was having a long conversation. Out of curiosity, I opened it and started reading. Turns out, she had sent a picture of a completely packed storage unit to her best friend in South Carolina. The unit had furniture, appliances, and essentially everything she'd need to set up a new apartment. I sat on that information for months before bringing it up. One night, we were sitting on the couch, and out of nowhere, I just turned to her and said, "So, I know about your storage unit." She was absolutely shocked. It was the last thing she expected me to say because she thought she was being clever. The conversation actually went pretty smoothly. We ended up agreeing to file for divorce, which was finalized on March 3rd of this year. Story 8. He smokes when he's out with friends. I had my suspicions. He'd come home smelling like smoke, and when I asked, he'd just shrug it off with, "Yeah, a couple of the guys were smoking." Then one night, on my way home from work, I happened to drive past the lounge where he and his friends were hanging out. And there he was taking a long drag of a cigarette. Honestly, I don't care. If anything, it's kind of cute how badly he's hiding it. I think he keeps it a secret because, early in our relationship, I mentioned how my ex used to smoke inside his apartment, and the smell lingering on his sheets was a total mood killer for me. Edit. No, I wasn't stalking or spying. He goes out with his friends every Friday, and sometimes they end up at a lounge that just happens to be on my route home. When I pass by, I usually glance over to see if he's outside, so I can wave. Nothing creepy, I swear. Story 9. Everyone has their go-to snack, right? Some people go for chips, others prefer fruit or yogurt. My wife, she's all about croutons. Frozen croutons, to be exact. And she hides them like an alcoholic stashing vodka bottles. Where does she keep her secret stash? The freezer. At first, I'd put them in the pantry after grocery shopping, but somehow, they'd always end up back in the freezer. I'd ask, Han, why are the croutons in the freezer? And she'd play dumb like she had no idea what I was talking about. Then curiosity got the best of me. I tried them. And now, I'm hooked too. So now I shamelessly grab a handful of frozen croutons as a snack, while she sits there calling me the weirdo, all while eating half the bag with me. No clue why she's embarrassed to admit she's actually a genius for discovering such an elite snack. Oh, and if you're wondering, the best kind? Chatham Village garlic and cheese. Story 10. My wife and I started dating when we were 15. We broke up here and there, but were on most of that time. We went to different colleges, but were mostly together. Then grad school, same deal, only we ended up renting an apartment together and sharing more than hallways and back seats of cars. We got married, got real jobs, bought a house. We have been together for more than half of our lives. We're 38 and 39 years old now. We have 2 wonderful kids together, a boy and a girl, 5 and 3 years old. And my wife isn't just the best wife in the world, she's also apparently the best mom in the world. That said, I know for goddamn sake she knows how to use the remote. I caught her switching the TV from cable to PS3, then log into Netflix, then navigate to a movie. When she says, "Can you put on the movie?" I don't know how. I know she's a healthy, intelligent, successful, athletic, active, funny, caring, loving, kind, generous, selfless phony. I love my wife beyond anything, and I'm glad she asks for my help at times, even when not needed. Story 11. I know that my wife drained our life savings and still has bills in her name that went into collections. It all stemmed from our daughter's medical issues, which came up while we were switching insurance providers. She's fine now, but she needed minor surgery. Never cheap when you're uninsured. I had assumed we had coverage at the time. My wife kept it all a secret until I had to reschedule an appointment with our daughter's pediatrician. That's when I was informed about our massive outstanding balance and got forwarded to the billing department. That's how I found out about everything, the unpaid bills, the collections, and the fact that our savings had been completely wiped out. At first, I was furious. When I confronted her, she broke down in tears, convinced I was going to leave her. But after confirming with the billing department that the medical expenses were truly where the money went, I forgave her. Now we're just starting over with our savings, and honestly, I'm just grateful that my family is healthy. So maybe this isn't exactly a secret anymore, but I figured it was worth sharing. If anyone out there is dealing with something similar, just talk to your partner. They'll probably be more understanding than you expect. Story 12. Not the worst thing ever, but I had an ex who threw a massive fit early in our relationship about how doing solo or watching porn while dating someone was only acceptable if done together. He swore he deleted all his porn. Personally, I thought it was ridiculous to erase 7 years' worth of a collection, dating back to his last ex, just for a relationship, especially when I thought the whole rule was stupid, but whatever. I told him flat out that I wasn't about to stop my solo sessions just because I now had someone else to do that for me. He dropped the issue after that, so I figured there was no point in arguing further. Fast forward a while, I was at his apartment, playing video games on his laptop while he was at work, with his permission, obviously. I was just trying to dig up his Steam directory, since his laptop had a habit of deleting shortcuts and struggling with launchers. That's when I stumbled across a folder named Fanfic. And well, curiosity won. Huge folder. Hundreds of pictures and videos spanning back to when he was a freshman in college, 7 years prior, all the way up to literally days ago. Everything meticulously organized, indexed, and labeled, which honestly made sense given the sheer size of it. The only security measure was the misleading folder name. To top it off, there was even a separate folder labeled as Corn, where he kept the stuff I had shown him, probably so he could keep track of what I already knew he had. I'll admit, he had some solid pics. Never told him I saw it. We broke up a year later over semi-related issue. Still don't understand why he thought private session was some deep betrayal when he had zero issue lying about it, or watching the exact same Corn with me. People are weird, man. Story 13. So, I found out that my fiancé was planning to propose, but was saving up for a really expensive ring. The thing is, I couldn't care less about that. I'd marry him without a ring. That's not what matters to me. So, I went to his mom and told her what I knew. She suggested we go ring shopping together, so I could pick something more affordable, and then she could casually mention to him that I had fallen in love with a ring that was within his budget. Sneaky, I know. While shopping, I found an amazing ring, normally $500, but on sale for just $100. I bought it myself, and his mom called him to tell him what she had found. He was so happy. On Christmas Eve, he proposed, and it was easily one of the best days of my life. He has no idea I was in on it. So now, he's unknowingly keeping my secret that I already knew. Story 14. A few years ago, I was dating this girl who had just graduated with her bachelor's degree, so I took her out to celebrate with our friends. They all got absolutely wrecked, and since this was before Uber, I volunteered to be the designated driver. Around 2 a.m., she was beyond drunk and very insistent that she needed Crystal burgers. So I swung by Crystal's, ordered a steamer pack, partly for her, partly for me, and partly for leftovers. She ate about 8 of them, and then I got her home, helped her into bed, and she immediately passed out. I was sitting next to her, watching some TV, when I caught a smell. I looked over and realized she had just crapped herself. And this was the kind of person who would die of embarrassment if anyone ever found out. So, I just left. The next day, I called her and told her I got her home, gave her some water, and then headed out. Never mentioned anything about what happened. To this day, she thinks it happened in her sleep after I left. Could I have stayed and helped her clean up? Probably. Should I have? Maybe. But I knew it would have devastated her, and she would have spent weeks avoiding me out of embarrassment. Story 15. Her ex is back in town, and she's been secretly meeting him behind my back. I know this because she shares her location with me. It started as a practical thing since she always misplaces her phone. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to get much attention since I was late to the conversation, but here we are. I'll go through your questions and answer as I can. I'll definitely update once I decide what to do. If she still loves him, I don't want to stand in the way. I'm waiting to see if she'll come clean on her own, and if she does, I won't let her know I already knew. But the truth is, she is cheating on me, and that's what hurts the most. She's been acting different, extra affectionate, putting more effort into her appearance, suddenly very interested in my schedule, but never actually asking me to come home early. For those wondering, we use Find My Friends on iPhone, not for surveillance, but just as a convenience. If one of us misplaces a phone, we can find it easily. But through that, I've been able to see that she's been at his place regularly. For now, I'm giving her time to come clean. We have a child and 8 years of marriage, so I want to handle this carefully. I know some people think I'm being a pushover, but that's not the case. I'm just not impulsive. It's both a strength and a weakness. I've scheduled a meeting with a lawyer on Friday to figure out my next steps. Right now, I feel miserable and depressed, but at least I'm moving forward. Story 16. This was from my ex, but he always hid that he had his solo time and watched porn, even though I knew he did. I'd feel him moving in the middle of the night, and it was the unmistakable rhythm of him beating his Vienna sausage. The corn thing was even better. He'd turn down the volume on his phone, but the light would shine in my face as I was sleeping facing him. I'd invariably wake up and watch him looking at corn and doing his thing. The last time I caught him, I had gotten into my car to run errands, and he had his phone synced to my car. I turned it on, and after a few seconds, I heard the unmistakable sound of a relatively decent corno. His mother was in the car with me, and we both laughed like idiots. I sent him a text after about 5 solid minutes of listening, and it said, "Save that video, it sounds really hot, and I want to watch it with you." Cue the sounds turning off, and a frantic text saying he was asleep, and he had a virus on his phone, so he had no idea where it came from. I don't know why he hid it from me. I encouraged his solo time and watching corn, and I never hid it when I did it. His fear of me knowing he did that culminated in a hilarious exchange one night in bed. After we banged one night, I asked why he refused to do it in front of me. This was his exact response. "I'm Catholic. It's better to spill seed in the belly of a or than to spill it on the ground." This was maybe 10 minutes after we banged. Story 17. My soon-to-be ex-wife met another guy about a year and a half ago, and honestly, she was so bad at hiding it that it felt like she wanted to get caught. She was posting romantic stuff on Instagram when we hadn't been romantic in a long time. When I confronted her, even with solid evidence, she still lied. A few months later, I started noticing things disappearing from the house. It was pretty obvious she was slowly moving out. Then every month, we were somehow out of money, even though I have a decent job. That's when I realized she had been stealing money by paying her own bills twice a month, sometimes 3 to 4 times the minimum payment, while completely neglecting mine. I let it slide for a while, just to see how far she'd take it, but eventually, I confronted her. She refused to admit to anything. So, I pulled my paycheck from our joint account. That's when she finally said she was leaving, but also claimed she was going to be homeless. The next day, she changed her Facebook back to her maiden name and posted a picture of her and the other guy in their new place. So yeah, I don't know if this counts, but I'd say that about sums it up. Story 18. My long-distance ex and I had a nasty fight while she was visiting her hometown, which led to our breakup. While we were apart, she went to an unconventional club, played with the first person she met, and ended up sleeping with him the next day. As we started to tentatively reconcile, she mentioned wanting to visit for her friend's birthday, but was tight on money. Wanting to smooth things over, I offered to lend her some cash until she got caught up. She had already come clean about what had happened at the club, and for some reason, I felt the need to set a boundary. I told her that if I was helping her financially, she couldn't use the trip as an excuse to see that guy. She assured me that she was coming strictly for her friend's birthday and had no plans to do anything club-related. Later, I found out she had actually visited on a completely different weekend, went straight to that guy's house, and then lied about coming down for her friend's birthday. We never got back together. She still reaches out sometimes, and I've been sitting on the knowledge of what she did, just waiting for the perfect moment to drop it on her. when it'll hit her the hardest. Story 19. Even though my wife and I had been married for 25 years, we always made up silly private jokes between us. I remember one time, I was talking about how we had fostered a Siamese cat from an adoption group. She was eventually adopted, but I really missed her. We were browsing the local pound's website together when we came across a Siamese named Montague. The photo they had of him was incredible. He was a classic applehead Siamese, about 5 years old and neutered, but with these hilariously crossed eyes. Whoever took his picture made him look both proud and completely insane. He had this vibe like a crazy regular who walks into a bar, claims to be the Emperor of the United States, and even though he's obviously a little off, everyone buys him a drink because he's just so charming. We started making up stories about Montague, almost like a parody of the world's most interesting man. Week after week, we checked to see if he'd been adopted, but no one seemed to want a quirky, cross-eyed cat. Everyone at the pound said he was affectionate, but he'd been there for a long time. Sadly, this became the last private joke we shared. My wife, who had a terminal illness, suddenly took a turn for the worse and passed away quickly. We thought we had more time. She had sarcoidosis, and her lungs had already been weakened by repeated pneumonia. When she caught the flu, it overwhelmed her. Because of the immunosuppressants she was on, it sent her into a coma, and she passed away a week later. My sister helped me with the funeral and took care of many things, including going through my wife's contacts. She came across a voicemail from the Alexandria Pound, trying to reach my late wife. Apparently, my wife had secretly applied to adopt Montague as a surprise gift. She'd already paid the adoption fee and had set up an appointment to adopt him, but she passed away before the visit. Unfortunately, my wife had put everything in her name, and the Pound was rude about it. They insisted I'd have to pay another adoption fee to take Montague home, and they were upset that she hadn't shown up. At that point, I was just overwhelmed, and my sister gave them a piece of her mind. They weren't too kind about it and told her to go to hell. That was the end of it. I hope Montague eventually found the loving home he deserved. Story 20. She was a cash-only companion, appeared in some adult films, and worked as an exotic dancer when she was young and struggling. She's retired now and even bought a food truck. I fell in love with it. The coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches were amazing. I don't think she knows I know her past, and I don't think she'll ever find out from me. I don't care, and I'll never say anything. Update: how did I find out? A now-deceased friend of my significant other, who had also been part of the life, told me years ago and even showed me proof. The person I love is the culmination of everything that came before them. Middle-class morality isn't a luxury everyone has the option to live by. Not everyone can, or wants to, embrace that value system. If people choose to reinvent themselves in part or whole, that's perfectly fine by me. Story 21. About 10 years ago, my wife drunkenly made out with a guy friend of hers at a birthday party. I only knew because she left her messaging client open where she confessed it to her best friend. I let it slide because she seemed genuinely upset that she did it and vowed to her friend that it would never happen again. We've been married for over 20 years now, so it hasn't dampened the relationship at all. Now, mind you, I never left the two of them together alone again. I'm forgiving, not stupid. Story 22. We broke up a few days ago, but before that, she would send revealing snaps to her guy friend, often right before or after showering. One time, I was just lying in bed when she went to shower. I heard the water turn on, then her clothes hit the floor, followed by the familiar sound of her iPhone camera. At the time, I didn't think much of it. A few weeks later, I walked into the bathroom to see her snapping a picture of herself, barely covering her chest and biting her lip. The name on the screen was hard to read, but the emojis next to it were a dead giveaway, and I knew exactly who it was for. I just said, "Okay," went about my business, and didn't say anything else. She came up with some excuse, but I didn't respond. We ended things the following week for a bunch of reasons, but that definitely added to the tension. Story 23. My wife and I have been together for 19 years and married for 15. She comes from a family where marriage hasn't had the best track record, and she was hesitant to marry me at first because she didn't want to feel trapped. So before we got married, she set up a secret savings account, saving several months' worth of living expenses. She hasn't touched it since and never brought it up to me. It's the only account that has statements emailed only to her, not one we both access. The account is really there as a safety net, so that if she ever felt the need, she could leave. It's not a huge amount, but it could sustain her for about 3 to 4 months. I tried to casually bring it up once, in a hypothetical way, and she immediately denied it, a little too defensively. I told her I'd be okay with it, no matter what. Honestly, I don't mind. It gives her peace of mind, and we've built a great life together. I understand that she sees it more as an insurance policy than anything else, and if we ever need to use it, we'll figure it out. I also think that she's still married to me because she wants to be, not because she feels she has to. Story 24. My ex cheated on me for most of our relationship. I knew about a lot of it, but stayed for the sake of our kid. At one point, she spent a few days at a friend's house without giving me much of a reason. A couple of months later, while going through her wallet, I found an ultrasound with a date stamp from around the time she was gone. I figured she must have terminated the pregnancy during that time. I finally worked up the courage to leave that relationship about a year later for many reasons. I've never brought it up to her and don't plan to, but I can't help but wonder, could it have been mine? Probably not, but I guess I'll never know. Story 25. She texts her ex all day, every day, sending selfies, telling him she misses him, and even having movie dates where they watch the same film at the same time. They fall asleep on the phone together, too. The worst part, they talk crap about me. She refers to me as number 3, as in her third boyfriend, and even makes up things I supposedly did just so they can mock me. He calls me a wuss, and they laugh about it. She hasn't sent him pictures or agreed to meet up in person, though he tries constantly. Occasionally, she'll casually mention, "Oh, my ex is texting me, he's so annoying," while secretly waiting for me to fall asleep so she can watch a movie with him. I found out by accident, through our kid's tablet, which is somehow synced with her phone. I still don't know how or when I'm going to end things, but I know I can't stay. Story 26. He's my ex now, obviously. We were together for 9 years, but he cheated on me for over a year with a coworker. He kept it a secret because she was underage, he was 26, and she was 17. Once she turned 18, they made it public. But he would casually mention her in work stories, and I never thought much of it. Then things started changing. He began driving me to work, keeping the car, and picking me up, making sure I was nowhere near his workplace. He put a password on his phone, started getting texts at odd hours, like 6 a.m., while she was waiting for the bus. One day, I left work early, and a friend drove me to his workplace instead of him coming to mine to pick me up. Surprise! I saw them leave together, hand in hand, several minutes after everyone else had left the building. By that point, I had already figured it out, but I stupidly waited for him to admit it instead of confronting him right away. He never came clean. He worked as a retail manager and had a keeper box and magnet at our house, so I locked his phone inside while he was in the shower and hid the magnetic key. When he came out, I made him tell me everything, which he already knew I knew, before I'd unlock his phone. After that, I kicked him out. Story 27. My husband of 15 years was spending a couple of hours reading Kitty Gay Corn before coming upstairs to bed. Usually I'd be asleep by then. Reading as in stories of men essaying little boys, or their grandsons, sons or nephews, or the scoutmaster, or the teacher essaying a boy in the barn. Reading is legal. Pictures are not. He was very careful. Once I stumbled across it, I had to deal with the shock that our marriage had been a lie, but I also knew he was in denial about something deep, and that he wasn't going to make good decisions on my behalf, or for his own life, and for our marriage, our sons and out futures. So I put key tracking software onto the computer, with the only justification being that if he spent any money or tried to contact a boy, that I would have to act while I tried to work out what I was going to do. He never knew that I knew exactly what he was doing, and that he lied to my face when I sympathetically tried to discuss it. The story is long and sordid and didn't end well. Story 28. Last October, I found out that she sent a guy explicit pictures. I know her Snapchat password, so I checked and saw that she asked him what he thought of them. He responded that they were the most perfect pair he'd ever seen. They both knew we were still dating, but there was no mention of that. It hurts just typing this because I really like her, and when things are good, they're really good, almost worth the pain good. I want to move on so badly, but I'm scared I'll never meet someone like her. She really seemed like the perfect girl, maybe even the one. I try every day not to think about it because she'll know something's up, but when I'm alone, I start to cry sometimes. It feels nice to get this off my chest. Honestly, I'm in a pretty dark place right now because of it. I don't know if I can ever trust anyone again. Edit. Thanks to everyone for the kind words. I just woke up and wanted to add a bit more detail. Last night when I wrote this, I was really depressed. I don't actually think about it as much as this post might make it seem, since it happened 5 months ago. But this thread really triggered it, and I just needed to vent. I didn't expect anyone to read it. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. What matters is whether we try not to make new mistakes or repeat the old ones. I believe she's the kind of person who deserves a second chance, and I think she regrets what she did. So, I'm going to try harder to forgive and move past it because I really love her. When I'm with her, the world just feels better, and I forget what happened. She's like a drug, and I'm an addict. She's the only girl who's made me feel this way. It's not just about the physical intimacy, like some have said. Just being with her makes me happy. That said, I believe in second chances, but not in thirds. Our relationship seems pretty healthy right now, and we're spending as much time together as we can. We were both going through a lot of drama when she did it, and I use that as an excuse to think she won't do it again. I really want to talk to her about it, hear her side of the story, and try to make sense of it all because I keep asking myself, why? And where did I go wrong? Maybe one day I'll bring it up. We're both young, 21 and 19, and we're still growing mentally. She's definitely more mature now than when we first started dating. But like I said, I believe in second chances, not third. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, then it's not. Story 29. When I was in Afghanistan, I had the idea of using my combat pay to buy a motorcycle. It's higher than regular pay. At the time, I didn't have a car, and with just 8 months left in the Marines before moving back to the Midwest, I knew a motorcycle wouldn't be practical in that climate. So, I ended up buying a car instead. Fast forward 2 years, and I meet my girlfriend, who is going through the end of an ugly marriage with her 1-year-old son. We begin dating, and 2 years later, we start living together. Throughout all of this, I've still been wanting a motorcycle, but we've had to focus on more practical things like getting her a new car, paying for childcare, and other necessities. I put my desire for a bike on hold to address our shared needs. She knew about my dream of getting a motorcycle, and finally, she approved a budget of $1,500 for me to find one. I found a bike on Craigslist for $2,000, but the seller turned out to be an old friend from a job I had as a security guard. He agreed to sell it to me for $1,500, which was a huge break. I told my girlfriend about it, and she said, "That's great, we'll get it if it's the one you want." But then she found the ad on Craigslist. I had shown her pictures, and contacted my friend, trying to buy the bike out from under me for the full $2,000 asking price. For a while, I didn't know what was going on, other than that my friend had another buyer willing to pay the full price. I told my friend I was just glad that my girlfriend was going to let me buy one, and he responded, "Yeah, you're lucky." Girlfriend's name sounds like a real keeper. The thing is, he had never met her, and I'd never mentioned her name to him. That made me suspicious. I played along and kept looking for other bikes, but nothing seemed right. I kept saying my friend's bike was a much better deal and that I thought I could do better. My birthday came around, and she blindfolded me and drove me to my friend's house. She even bought a bow to put on the bike, so there would be no confusion. It was a gift for me. When we got there, I let on that I had some suspicions because my friend had immediately found another buyer after I told her about it, but I pretended to be surprised. It was a thoughtful gesture, and I was genuinely touched. She's definitely a keeper. Story 30. We're not together anymore, but we're still friends after our breakup about 7 months ago. We started dating when we were 17, and a few years later, we bought an apartment together. Like most relationships, things eventually settled into routine, and the spark faded. Then, in June of last year, she told me, crying, that she had slept with another guy. To say it was a blow would be an understatement. I never saw it coming and couldn't believe she was capable of doing something like that. For months before that, she had been going out more to meet friends. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but after she told me about the affair, it started to make sense. In October, I made the mistake of going through her phone and Facebook messages while she was asleep. That's when I found out she had been dirty texting with several people, including a few of my old friends and some colleagues from work. I also found texts where she bragged about going through half the male population of our area. Not exactly her words, but you get the idea. I never told her I went through her phone, but I did say, "I'm starting to understand what it is you're doing when you're out." She denied it. I've never felt so conflicted, loving and hating someone at the same time. I was going to confront her, but now I'm not sure what good it would do. At this point, it seems like it's best for everyone to just move on. Story 31. It's no longer a secret, and no longer but my ex once got me tickets to a Maroon 5 concert for my birthday. She asked me a month in advance to take a couple of days off from work, a Tuesday and Wednesday, so I knew it was for some kind of event. It didn't take long for me to figure out what it was, but I played along and pretended I had no clue. It was funny, especially when we'd be in the car and hear radio ads for the concert, ticket giveaways, and dates. Her eyes would widen, or she'd quickly change the station. On the day of the surprise, I bought a Maroon 5 shirt and kept it hidden from her. When the day came, I called out from the room, asking what kind of outfit I should wear. She said jeans would be fine, so I came out wearing the Maroon 5 shirt and asked, "So can I wear this? Is that okay?" She wasn't as amused as I'd hoped. Oh well. It's nearly impossible to surprise me, but I still had a great time at the concert with her. Story 32. We're not dating anymore, but I guess I'll share this anyway. We were having problems toward the end of our relationship. One day, I noticed her phone while she was using it, and I saw a guy's name at the top of her received Snapchat messages, with a little smiley face indicating they were snapping each other a lot. I didn't mind her having male friends. I'm not the jealous or possessive type. But she was the opposite. She'd always told me about the guys she was friends with, and she mostly didn't get too close to them. She checked her phone several times over the few hours we were hanging out, like she was having a conversation and eagerly waiting for a reply. Then, I went away for 2 weeks for training, and we fought a lot over text and phone calls. When I came back, her attitude had changed. She became far more possessive about her phone. In the year we'd been dating, and in the years we'd known each other, she'd never been secretive with her phone. She would leave it on the shelf next to her while sleeping, but now she started keeping it under her pillow. She changed the password from 4 digits, which she'd always told me, to 6 digits and a fingerprint scanner, and wouldn't let me know the new password. I never cared about knowing it, but now she wouldn't let me touch it, even when asking for help opening it. Occasionally, I'd catch a glimpse of the screen while she was using it, and Guy's name would pop up in her messages or snaps. I was suspicious, but I kept telling myself that if we were going to make it work, I needed to trust her. If something was going on, she wasn't going to tell me anyway. A month after we broke up, I saw a Facebook photo she was tagged in. It was her friend's boyfriend, and Guy. Very clearly a double date. She'd always been adamant about how seriously she took cheating, and I believe she holds that belief. But she also had a tendency to redefine things, taking perspectives that justified her actions. Just implying that I thought she might cheat would have been enough to set her off. I'm not sure she physically cheated on me, but I'm certain she was flirting with and building an intimate connection with this guy. And in my book, that's cheating. At least it would be if the roles were reversed. We're still sort of friends now, more like friendly acquaintances with mutual friends. She has a lot of emotional insecurities, especially about how guys she's been involved with perceive her. I'm sure if she knew I knew about what happened, she'd have some sort of breakdown. Story 33. My ex-fiancée. She used to have me come over after work to watch her son. Things between us were a bit rocky, like 1 minute we were great, and the next distant. One day, I picked up her son, came over to her apartment, and opened her laptop, which was a regular thing for me, and found her email open with a bunch of new Match.com matches. I never told her I knew. A few weeks later, she bought a house without telling me. That's not something someone does if they're planning on marrying their partner. I figured she probably wanted to end things, but wasn't able to bring it up, so I broke up with her. No hard feelings. We both eventually married other people. A couple of years later, she messaged me saying she missed me and never fully moved on. We had some long, in-depth Facebook conversations. That's when I told her I knew she'd been talking to other guys before we broke up. She denied it. She still posts cryptic messages on Facebook about how she misses me. It's been 7 years now. Deep down, I still care for her. We were young and went through a lot of tough experiences together that brought us close, but we were also immature. That said, I've moved on from that part of my life. I hope she can too. Story 34. He lied to me about talking to his mom, who's an abusive person that once tried to kidnap my child, spreads false stories about me that I can easily disprove, and even pretended his dad had heart failure just to get him to speak with her again. Normally, I wouldn't care if And-so talks to their mom, but with her, it's different. She's gone so far that I had to involve the police to get our daughter back, and he never stood up for me, despite how much effort I made to be kind to her. I even stood on a 5-foot ladder, pregnant, just to help her dust above her kitchen cabinets. I don't want him talking to her because when he does, he turns from the sweet, loving man I married into someone completely different. A jerk who resorts to name-calling and humiliation instead of logical conversation. He ignores me completely or acts like he can't hear me, and gets irritated if I touch him. She's done awful things, like beating my 18-month-old for vomiting when she was sick, telling my kid she's going to hell for peeing in her diaper, editing me out of family photos, and calling my daughter a racial slur because she's 1/4 Lebanese. Otherwise, I just ignore her behavior and not care that my husband talks to her. He doesn't know he lied, and he probably thinks I've forgotten about the argument, but I haven't. It's the first time he's ever lied to me, and he's relying on my brain injury to make me forget. It leaves things a little awkward. Story 35. When we were dating, she told me she'd never been with another woman before. It was on her bucket list, not because she thought she was into women, but because she found the female body attractive. Being the nice guy that I am, I told her that if the opportunity ever came up, she could go for it, just as long as she came home to me and didn't share any details. I'm not a jealous person, and I was confident I wouldn't find myself in this situation, but I didn't want to take any chances. I knew she loved me, and I was sure it was just a one-time thing. After it happened, I could tell something was off. She was spending more time on her phone, and intimacy between us faded. I could tell something was going on. One night, she got drunk, and I ended up snooping. I went through her messages with the person she experimented with, and found a lot of dirty texting. Sadly, the messages included things like her saying she didn't feel anything with me anymore, that she no longer wanted me, and other hurtful things. I took photos of everything on her screen. The worst moment came over her birthday weekend. We had rented a cabin with a group of people, and of course, I paid for it since it was her birthday. During one night, while we were preparing dinner for the group, I noticed she was on her phone a lot, hardly paying attention to me. After she passed out, I checked again, and sure enough, the texting was still going on. By then, I had known this had been happening for a couple of months. We were together for about 2.5 years before we broke up. The experiment happened roughly 18 months in. We're not together anymore, and while I had several opportunities to bring up what I found, I never did. I figured my credibility would be ruined since I had snooped, so I just kept quiet. Honestly, I'll probably never bring it up. Story 36. During a separation from my first husband, I logged into his Facebook and discovered he was in a serious relationship with his ex-girlfriend. We had separated because he was physically abusive and mentally ill. One night, he held me hostage with a loaded shotgun, and the next day, I got a restraining order against him. He was briefly placed in a mental hospital, but only for a few days before being released. I lived in constant fear for over a year. I logged into his Facebook because his family had been feeding me lies, and I needed to understand what he was doing with his life, especially since he was seeking visitation with our son. What I found shocked me. Evidence of drug use and reckless behavior that would have made him a danger to our son, who never saw him again. But what really hit me was seeing him in a new, serious relationship. In a strange way, it was what I needed to let go. Shortly after, he committed suicide. I was so overwhelmed at his funeral, trying to manage our 2-year-old, that I didn't even notice if his girlfriend was there. She later posted about her loss on Facebook, and I was shunned by his friends and family. I was blamed for his suicide, with some people making their opinions clear at the funeral. I don't think Kevin ever knew I found out about his girlfriend. Maybe, just maybe, he knows now. Story 37. My ex-wife talks badly about me to her family and friends, and unfortunately, my daughter hears it all. Sometimes she feels embarrassed when she's with me or when we go out to do things together. My ex petitioned for an annulment and got it, but what she doesn't know is that as part of the process, I had access to everything she said about me, including the things she made up, and how she spread those stories to her family. I had the option to present the messages, photos, and videos she sent me while I was at work asking for things she now claims I made her do for 9 years. I could have used that as evidence in my defense, but instead, I just put the phone down and told them it wasn't true and they shouldn't believe her. I also mentioned that I had been diagnosed with depression. Despite everything, they granted her the annulment. My daughter is handling it okay. and she's seeing a therapist. I try my best to be a positive role model for her in every way, and I avoid discussing the situation because she doesn't want to talk about it. Story 38. He's a crossdresser. When we first moved in together, I found a few women's items that didn't belong to me and didn't seem like they were from his ex either. Whenever I ask to borrow his laptop, he usually resets his browser history before handing it over, though a couple of times he's forgotten to do so. When that happens, I've noticed that his YouTube suggestions are filled with transformation videos. He's also borrowed my computer, gotten stoned, and left his old CD MySpace account open, where he goes by the name Lara. If I can't find a sweater or a pair of panties, I know I'll probably find them hidden and stretched out in his dresser. I have no reason to think he's gay. I just feel like I'm dating Ed Wood. Story 39. My soon-to-be ex is cheating on me. I found a post he made on Craigslist in the strictly platonic section looking for a gym partner because he's been really into fitness lately. He didn't mention it, and I only found out by accident. When I confronted him, he got super defensive and said he had some answers, but never actually met up with anyone. He claimed it was no big deal because it's just a gym partner. Yeah, sure. I decided to let it slide and dug into his email, since I know his password, since he only uses a couple of them. Sure enough, he's been hooking up with some guy behind my back. It started innocently with them working out and talking, but eventually, the other guy asked to hang out outside the gym, and my ex agreed. They met up and slept together the same day. He told me he was going to the mall with his mom. They've been hooking up every chance they get for the last couple of months. I've started saving money and packing my stuff when he's not around. He's pretty oblivious to things unless they're directly pointed out to him, so he hasn't noticed the boxes and bags of my stuff slowly disappearing from the closet. Our intimate life is non-existent now, and although we still share occasional laughs and dinners, it's done. I've applied for another apartment, and am just waiting to hear back. When I do, I plan to move out in a single day. He has no idea, and honestly, I don't care. He's been trying to be more romantic lately, asking for more hand-holding and hugs, but he's still sleeping with this gym buddy. Story 40. My ex, now, but I had a feeling back then that he was ashamed of me, and it was confirmed. When we'd spend time together, he would lie to his friends about what he was doing, saying he wasn't on a date with me. It didn't bother me when he lied to his roommates. Guys will be guys, and they probably would have teased him. But his old friend group included his first ex, and it really hurt when I saw he messaged her saying he couldn't hang out because he was still picking his dad up from the airport. It stung, but I didn't want to confront him. I was too much of a coward to do it. The truth came out after he broke up with me. We were at a party 2 days later. I tried to keep my distance from him, but I needed to use the porta-potty. While I was in there, I overheard him completely drunk, talking about me to someone. He launched into a brutal, unfiltered rant about why he broke up with me, calling me the most pathetic person he had ever met. He said I was aimless in life, hadn't even graduated yet, didn't know how to drive, that I was insecure and hopeless, and that he was completely done with dealing with me or being associated with me. Somehow, I managed to sneak out of the porta-potty without him noticing and ended up crying in a quiet area away from everyone with a friend I trusted. He has no idea I overheard any of that, and I don't think he even remembers saying it. I only recently told a couple of friends about it, 2 years later. He had anxiety issues, too, and I've been told he was probably projecting a lot of his own struggles onto me. Or maybe he just hated my insecurities because they reminded him of his own. Still, it hurts to think that I loved him long after he stopped loving me, especially knowing how much resentment he felt toward me. Story 41. When we first started dating, we were long distance. She came to visit me for 4 days, but I had to work during one of them. While I was gone, she had to use the bathroom and ended up clogging the toilet. She couldn't get it to plunge and started freaking out. Desperate, she grabbed a fork and a plastic bag from the kitchen, fished the mess out, and threw everything in the dumpster out back. In her panic, she called a friend, who thought the whole situation was hilarious. That same friend later told me about it one night after we had moved in together, while my girlfriend had stepped out of the room. I think it's funny, but I'd never bring it up. I don't want to embarrass her. Story 42. When we were in the hospital for some unexplained pain I was having, uninsured, with doctors suspecting cancer, I lost it. But she was so damn brave for me. Then her mom called. She went into the bathroom to talk, but she didn't realize how loudly the sound echoed into the room. I heard her break down, sobbing, telling her mom she had no idea how we were going to afford treatment, that things looked really bad. I'll never tell her I heard, but God, it was heartbreaking. When she came out, you'd never know she had been crying. She sat right down, looked me in the eyes, and told me everything was going to be fine, with such determination, such certainty. Then she pulled out her laptop, right there in the hospital room, and started making a spreadsheet to figure out how to fit cancer into our finances. At that moment, I knew how much she loved me. I could see how desperately she wanted to be strong for me. And somehow, I became calm. I haven't broken down like that since, not even with worse news. I think she makes me strong. God, I frigging love her. Edit. Since people are asking, yes, unfortunately, it is cancer. Stage 4 colon cancer. I'm 23. Had major surgery that removed both ovaries, uterus, fallopian tubes, and cervix. They made me a new one, science man. Appendix. A third of my colon. A spot on my liver. About 20 lymph nodes. I got a port put in and should be starting chemo next week. There's no cure for colon cancer yet. My doctor describes my case as treatable but not curable, but there are clinical trials and research happening. Plus, I hear maintenance chemo isn't too bad, so I'm going to fight like hell. Oh, and in case you hadn't guessed by now, I'm a woman. Edit 2. Hell yeah, my girl and I are still together. We just celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.